Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something, well, something really important. The mental health impact, the intense challenges facing federal workers right now. Our mission for this deep dive, we want to explore just how widespread this is, this quiet crisis, and maybe more importantly, lay out some practical options for support, specifically through the Office of Workers' Compensation Programs, OWCP.
Right, and we've pulled together some really key information for you. We're looking at a big federal news network survey, reports from crisis lines that are pretty sobering, and also guidance from groups like AFGE, the union, and law offices that actually specialize in these federal claims. So hopefully this deep dive gives you both the background, the context, but also some really actionable stuff.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Some of these findings are, frankly, quite striking. Imagine that feeling, waking up with that knot in your stomach, feeling constantly on edge. For thousands of federal employees, this isn't just a one-off bad day. It's become their reality. That Federal News Network survey, they talked to nearly, 3,650 workers?
Yeah, big sample.
And an incredible 95% said they've experienced more stress, more anxiety, more depression since some recent administration reform started.
Right.
95%. When you hear a number like that,
Yeah.
what does it immediately tell you?
Wow. 95% isn't just high. It signals a profound mental health crisis. It really does. It speaks to, I think, a deep erosion of trust, of psychological safety across a whole sector. This isn't just, normal job stress we're talking about. It suggests the whole foundation, that idea of stable federal service, it's been shaken. And that leads to just widespread emotional distress.
And the specific things people reported.
Yeah, things like high anxiety, chronic stress, insomnia, even anger outbursts, and deep depression. There was one quote in there that it really hits home. Someone said, "I wake up having panic attacks at least 4 times a week. It's affecting my entire life. My stress has affected all of us, and I hate myself for this." That's trauma, not just stress.
And it ripples outwards, doesn't it? It's not just the individual.
Mm-hmm.
The survey talked about suicidal thoughts, serious strain on marriages, families in distress, work life spilling over and causing chaos at home. Nearly 90% said these mental health issues are hurting their overall health and well-being. And about half admitted their job performance and relationships have suffered because of it.
Exactly.
Morale is apparently just through the floor. People feeling completely demoralized, constantly worried about being rifed, laid off any minute.
And it's more than just a tough job market feel. It really seems exacerbated by this atmosphere of uncertainty and maybe even a perceived hostility towards civil servants. We heard from longtime employees saying they've never felt this disregard before, even after decades of service. That's incredibly demoralizing.
Yeah, and here's something that's really concerning, maybe even infuriating. This whole issue of stigma and distrust.
Yeah.
We heard that some federal workers are actually hiding where they work just to avoid public negativity. But maybe even more critical is this statistic. About 80% knew about their agency's employee assistance program, the EAP, or other wellness resources. They knew about them.
Right.
But they refused to use them. 80%. Why? What does that tell you about the culture when people won't use the resources meant to help?
It tells you the culture is broken, frankly. It's a huge red flag. It means seeking help is seen as a risk, a career liability. People are afraid it won't be confidential, or worse, that it'll be used against them somehow. Retaliation.
Wow.
One person said it really bluntly, "I don't need to give them an additional reason to push me out of the government." So that fear, it just silences people. People who desperately need help are suffering alone because they're too scared to use the official channels.
And it's not just surveys showing this. There's external proof too, right? Like the VA's crisis hotline.
Yeah, exactly. The Veterans Affairs Crisis Hotline has seen a really disturbing increase in calls from federal employees. People just overwhelmed by layoff news, by the uncertainty. Responders on that hotline have actually reported hearing people talk about homicidal thoughts, their suicidal thoughts. It really underscores the depth of the emotional trauma here. This is very real.
Okay, so given all that, the weight of it all, the big question becomes, can these work-related mental health conditions, this kind of intense stress and anxiety, can it actually be covered by OWCP? What's the bottom line here?
The bottom line is yes. Yes, they can be covered. The law, the Federal Employees Compensation Act, FECA, it does recognize work-related mental health conditions as injuries that can be compensated, as long as, and this is key, as long as they are caused or made worse by factors related to your work. Federal law 5 USC section 81015, it specifically includes mental, emotional, and nervous injuries if they were initiated or exacerbated by a work circumstance. So things like diagnosed clinical anxiety, depression, PTSD, if they stem from your federal job, they can potentially be covered.
That's really crucial information. But I sense there's a but coming. What's the catch? What's the big challenge here?
You're right, there's definitely a challenge, a significant one. Getting OWCP to actually accept a mental health claim is difficult. It requires a lot of proof. These types of claims, just by their nature, they face a really high burden of evidence. OWCP isn't going to approve a claim just because you say you have ordinary job stress or you're frustrated.
Right.
You absolutely have to show specific work conditions or specific incidents that led to a severe medically diagnosed mental condition. They need to see that clear link. This happened at work, and that caused this diagnosis.
Okay, so what does that mean in practice for an employee trying to make a claim? What kind of proof are we talking about? What do they need to show?
Well, you generally need to hit 3 main points. First, you need a valid medical diagnosis. And like I said, not just I'm stressed. It has to be an official diagnosis, maybe generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, acute stress disorder, something like that, from a qualified professional.
Okay, if formal diagnosis. Got
Okay.
it. What's second?
Second, you need to show that causal link to work. You have to point to specific work-related factors, things that actually happened on the job that cause or significantly worsened your condition. This could be things like severe overwork, impossible deadlines, documented harassment or bullying, maybe witnessing a traumatic event, or other unusual stuff like, a constant barrage of abusive emails from a manager or a really frightening incident.
So just feeling anxious about potential layoffs might not be enough on its own.
Probably not, unless you can tie that fear directly to specific management actions or communications or conditions that go way beyond what's considered normal job stress. General anxiety about job security is usually seen as part of the job, unfortunately. You need something more specific, more tangible that happened to you.
Okay. And the third pillar you mentioned.
The third is objective evidence. As much as possible, you need documentation to back up your claim about those stressors. Things like emails, memos, performance reports, maybe even statements from coworkers if they're willing. The idea is to show that your experience wasn't just your perception. It wasn't purely subjective. You want to show that, yeah, anyone in this situation would likely find it incredibly stressful.
Hmm. To corroborate your story.
Exactly. Otherwise, OWCP might argue it was, personal issues outside of work or maybe a pre-existing sensitivity rather than the job itself causing the problem.
And then there are the practicalities, like timing.
Right. Timeliness and eligibility. Like any FECA claim, there are deadlines for filing. And crucially for stress claims, you generally must still be employed by the agency when you file. Leaving your job before filing can sometimes jeopardize the claim. So if possible, it's usually best to get that process started while you're still on the agency's rolls.
Wow. That sounds like a lot to handle for someone who's already dealing with severe anxiety or depression. How realistic is it for someone in that state to gather all this evidence?
It's incredibly hard, no question. And that's why getting support and being persistent is just so vital. And when you do start that OWCP claim, using the right form is key. It's kind of like, using the right tool for the job.
Okay.
So if your stress or anxiety built up over time, maybe weeks or months, from that constant pressure or a hostile environment, you'll typically use Form CA2. That's the Notice of Occupational Disease. OWCP sees conditions that develop gradually from ongoing exposure as an occupational disease.
Not like a sudden injury.
Oh, exactly. If it was a single specific event like witnessing something violent or an assault on the job all happening within one work shift, then you'd use Form CA1, the Notice of Traumatic Injury. But for most of these emotional conditions we're talking about stemming from cumulative stress, the CA2 is usually the one.
Okay, CA2 for ongoing stress. Got it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned support. Medical support seems absolutely critical here. Why is it so important to get help early? And are there specific rules about who provides that medical support for an OWCP claim?
Yes, absolutely critical. And yes, there are specific rules. First, seek help from a qualified mental health professional as soon as you can. Don't wait. And here's the big OWCP rule. For a stress or psychiatric claim, your main treating physician, the one providing the core medical evidence, must be a psychiatrist that's an MD or a licensed clinical psychologist.
Not a social worker or a regular doctor.
Generally, no, not for the primary medical evidence supporting the claim itself. While therapists, social workers, or your family doctor can be incredibly helpful for your actual treatment and support, OWCP requires that formal diagnostic evaluation and the opinion on causation to come from a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. They're trained to make those formal diagnoses and connect symptoms to specific workplace factors in the way OWCP requires for these legal claims.
Okay, so when you see that psychiatrist or psychologist, what should you focus on telling them?
Be really open. Be detailed about what's been happening at work and how it's affecting you, your symptoms, your feelings. Your doctor needs to clearly document how your work conditions are impacting your mental health. A strong medical report is absolutely key. It should ideally connect the dots, maybe even stating that your condition is more likely than not caused, or at least significantly worsened, by those specific work events or conditions you described.
So the doctor's report needs to explicitly link work to the condition.
Yes. That causal link documentation is crucial for OWCP. And, keep your own records too. Notes from visits, lists of medications, any referrals. It helps support your claim, but more importantly, it helps make sure you're getting consistent care.
This whole process, filing the claim, dealing with OWCP, gathering evidence, especially when you're already not feeling well, it just sounds incredibly draining.
Mm-hmm.
What should people realistically expect? And how do you handle setbacks? Like if a claim gets denied initially.
You need to go into it expecting it to take time and, emotional energy. Compassion for yourself is key here. These claims demand patience, persistence. It's very common for OWCP or your agency to ask for more information, more evidence, and initial denials. They happen frequently with stress claims. It's almost part of the process sometimes.
So a denial isn't necessarily the end of the road?
Not at all. Try not to get too discouraged. It might just mean you need to provide more specific details or get a stronger medical report or clarify something. If you hit those roadblocks, seriously consider talking to an attorney who specializes in federal workers' comp or an experienced claims representative, maybe through your union. They can really help navigate the appeals process, assemble the right evidence, and frame your case effectively.
Especially for those tougher claims.
Exactly, especially claims involving harassment or proving a hostile work environment. Those are often the hardest to win because they require such meticulous documentation of the mistreatment and its impact. Having legal or union backup can make a huge difference there.
And through all of this, focusing on self-care seems paramount. Filing claims, fighting appeals, it's stressful in itself.
Absolutely. You have to protect your own well-being during this. Keep up with therapy. Follow your doctor's advice. If work is just becoming unbearable, talk to your doctor about options. Maybe taking some time off for intensive treatment is needed. If your OWCP claim is eventually approved, it could potentially cover lost wages for that period.
Right. And that quote you shared earlier, we do these jobs in service of our country, but there is only so much we can take. It really resonates. It's okay to say this is too much.
It really is. Your reactions are understandable. They're human, given these kinds of pressures. And since we know so many people are hesitant about using the official agency EAP, it's really important people know about other places to turn for support.
Like what?
Well, check your private health insurance. They usually have a network of mental health providers. Look for community support groups, maybe online or local. Sometimes nonprofits step in, like that group that offered independent counseling to USII folks who got laid off. And definitely talk to your union if you're a member. They often have a lot of experience with OWCP stress claims. They might have referrals to good doctors or lawyers, and just having peer support from colleagues who understand can be huge.
And leaning on personal networks, too.
Yes. Don't forget family and friends. That survey respondent who said, "We're your neighbors, friends, and family. Check on us." That's a powerful reminder to reach out both for help and to offer it.
It's also worth mentioning that this kind of intense mental and emotional strain, it often shows up physically, too, right? Like tension, headaches, back pain getting worse, things like that.
Oh, absolutely. The mind-body connection is incredibly strong. Chronic stress can absolutely trigger or worsen physical ailments. And sometimes addressing those physical symptoms can be a really important part of coping overall.
So how can organizations maybe help with that connection? Like, I know Restore Muscle and Joint works with federal employees. How does that fit in?
Yeah, that's a great point. So organizations like Restore Muscle and Joint, our primary focus is on orthopedic and musculoskeletal health, backs, necks, joints, nerves. But we absolutely recognize that deep link between physical pain and mental stress. They often go hand in hand. So while we aren't mental health providers ourselves, we see ourselves as part of the support system.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, if a federal employee comes to us, maybe stressed and also dealing with, say, chronic back pain or headaches, we listen. We understand the federal system, the pressures. We can definitely refer them to trusted mental health professionals in our network, psychologists, psychiatrists, people we know understand these issues and can provide that crucial evaluation and counseling.
And you're familiar with the OWCP documentation side of things, too.
We are very familiar with the federal workers' comp system, yeah. We know how important proper medical documentation is, whether it's for a physical injury claim or potentially supporting aspects of a stress claim if physical symptoms are involved. We can't file OWCP claims for you or guarantee they'll be accepted, of course, but we can help point you towards the right resources. Maybe a good OWCP attorney, union contacts, or those qualified mental health providers.
And you also treat the physical symptoms directly.
Yes, absolutely. That's our core work. If you're dealing with physical issues like neuropathy, chronic back or disc pain, knee problems, joint pain, things that stress can definitely make worse, we treat those directly. Our medical team, our chiropractic professionals, we work to reduce that physical pain, improve mobility, improve your physical well-being, and honestly, feeling better physically can make a real difference in your ability to cope with mental stress too.
So it's kind of a comprehensive approach.
We aim for that. For federal employees dealing with both that mental strain and physical pain, we try to coordinate care. Work alongside your mental health provider so you're getting support for the whole person. The big message is, you're not alone in this. Your mental and physical health should be the absolute top priority.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. The really significant mental health strain we're seeing among federal employees.
Yeah, those numbers are stark.
The fact that ODOCP can potentially cover work-related mental health conditions, but also the very real hurdles and the proof required.
Right, it's possible, but definitely not easy.
And then the different avenues for support, whether it's finding the right doctor, using external resources, leaning on unions, or even addressing related physical symptoms.
The main takeaway, I think, is that federal service shouldn't have to cost you your well-being. Workers' comp might be an option for severe work-related stress, anxiety, or depression. And there are people and resources out there that can help you figure it out.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. Given how complex this all is, the rules, the emotional toll, what steps can you take proactively to guard your own well-being, even when the system feels just overwhelming? And maybe on a bigger scale, how can we, as a society, give better support to people doing these demanding public service jobs? Something to think about, definitely. The importance of advocating for yourself and reaching out for help when you need